7 years had passed since James Walker returned from the scorching sands of Afghanistan, but the war never truly left him. Settling on the outskirts of a small Texas town, he lived a life cloaked in silence, his modest home a fortress of solitude, with curtains perpetually drawn against the outside world. At 38, he was a man unmoored, haunted by post-traumatic stress disorder, a label the doctors gave to the relentless shadow he couldn't escape. Night after night, nightmares clawed at him, vivid echoes of explosions and gunfire that jolted him awake, his heart pounding as sweat soaked his sheets. Sleep became a rare visitor, fleeting and fragile, stolen by memories he couldn't bury. Crowds unnerved him, their chatter a cacophony that set his nerves on edge, while sudden noises, a car backfiring, a door slamming, sent his pulse racing, thrusting him back to the chaos of the battlefield. He turned his back on the world, avoiding even his family, their concerned voices drowned out by the only one he halfway trusted. His own, though it often felt foreign, detached, like it belonged to someone else. The loss of Kane, his German shepherd partner from the war, deepened the wound. A scar beneath his uniform he carried in silence. It was his therapist who suggested the shelter visit, a quiet nudge toward reconnection, though James resisted, reluctant to face anything beyond the walls he'd built. That overcast day, as he sat in his truck outside the county animal shelter, engine idling, he didn't know he was on the cusp of something more than peace. He was about to reclaim a piece of himself he'd thought lost forever in the desert. For James, PTSD wasn't just a diagnosis. It was a daily battle, fought alone until fate intervened. The gravel crunched under James Walker's boots as he stepped out of his truck, hands buried deep in the pockets of his worn jacket. The overcast Texas sky casting a muted glow over the county animal shelter. He hadn't wanted to be there. The visit was his therapist's idea, another reluctant step toward finding peace after 7 years of battling the ghosts of Afghanistan. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of disinfectant and wet fur, and a tired woman at the desk offered a nod he barely returned. James moved slowly down the narrow corridor, metal kennels lining the walls, filled with dogs that barked, wagged, or stared blankly. At 6 feet tall, his broad frame seemed to shrink under the weight of his isolation, his hazel eyes scanning without truly seeing, until he reached the last row. There in the far left kennel, an older German shepherd lay still on a threadbare blanket, his coat dull and patchy, ribs faintly visible beneath thinning fur. But it wasn't the dog's condition that stopped James cold. It was his eyes. Deep amber, sharp, unblinking. They locked onto James with an intensity he hadn't felt in years. His breath caught, a strange pressure building in his chest as he crouched, trembling, not daring to believe. "No, it can't be," he whispered, voice barely a thread. The dog's ears twitched, his head tilting slightly, and then, with unsteady legs, he rose and took 2 hesitant steps forward. "Kane," James breathed, the name a prayer, a plea. The shepherd pressed his nose against the bars, letting out a faint whine, and lifted a paw, placing it against the gate, licking James's fingers in the exact way he'd done after every mission in the desert. Tears blurred James's vision as he dropped to his knees, a sob breaking free. "Kane, is it really you?" 7 years of guilt, grief, and silence unraveled in that moment, the shelter's dim light framing an impossible reunion. He'd come seeking peace, a vague hope to quiet his restless mind. But instead he found his brother, a piece of his soul he'd lost to war, staring back at him through those unforgettable eyes. In the blistering dust of southern Afghanistan, under a sun that scorched the earth and turned the air to a shimmering haze, Sergeant James Walker met Kane for the first time 7 years ago. The German shepherd was lean and sharp-eyed, a 90-pound bundle of muscle and instinct, already seasoned from 2 tours before joining James's unit. From the moment their boots and paws hit the same parched ground, something clicked, an unspoken trust forged. In the heat, sand, and ever-present hum of danger. Kane wasn't just a military dog trained to sniff out explosives. He was a soldier, quiet and alert, always 2 steps ahead of the men he served with. His keen senses could detect a pressure plate buried 6 inches beneath the dirt long before any human eye could spot the threat, saving James and their unit time and again. But one day etched itself into James's memory forever. On a remote mountain pass, their convoy crawled along a route riddled with IEDs, the valley eerily silent, a stillness that twisted James's gut with dread. Kane, walking point with his usual precision, froze mid-stride, his body stiffening as he glanced back at James. Then, in a blur of fur and instinct, he bolted to James's side just as an explosion tore through the earth behind them. The shock wave hurled James off his feet, debris raining down, and when the dust settled, Kane lay over him, chest heaving, his body a shield against the blast that would have ended James's life. From that moment, they were inseparable. James talked to Kane more than anyone, about his family in Texas, his fears, his dreams of home, his voice a lifeline in a war zone of uncertainty. Kane listened in silence, nudging his hand or resting his head in his lap, a steady presence amid the chaos. But war takes without mercy. One night, under a blood-red sky, an ambush erupted, gunfire, shouts, and a bullet to James's leg. As medics dragged him to a chopper, Kane vanished in the fray. James screamed his name into the desert, but the sound was swallowed, leaving a wound that never healed, until fate brought them back together. When James Walker brought Kane home from the shelter, the German shepherd rode shotgun in his truck, head resting quietly against the window, his amber eyes reflecting a world James had long shut out. 7 years had separated them, but the moment Kane stepped into James's silent Texas home, something shifted. The first few days were tentative. Kane, now older and slower, curled up on an old blanket by the sliding glass door, his 75-pound frame a shadow of the muscled soldier he'd once been. His breathing was shallow, his movements sparse, and James, respecting the space they'd always shared, didn't push. He'd come to the shelter seeking peace, urged by his therapist to reconnect after years of nightmares and isolation. But what he found in Kane was a lifeline. On the fourth night, as James lay half asleep on the couch, battling another bout of insomnia, he heard the soft tap of claws on the floor. Kane approached, stood before him, and gently placed his head on James's chest, letting out a sigh. That night, for the first time in years, James slept through till morning, the weight of Kane's presence a balm to his restless mind. Day by day, Kane grew more alive. His tail wagged when James entered the room, his ears perked at his name, and he began to shadow James from room to room, just as he had in Afghanistan. They took short walks in the quiet evenings, half a mile at most, James speaking softly about thoughts he'd never voiced aloud, Kane listening with the same steadfast attention. It wasn't the same as before. War had scarred them both, leaving wounds of absence and pain, but their reunion carved out a new rhythm, one of quiet resilience. Then came the morning that sealed their bond anew. James stepped outside, coffee in hand, distracted by his phone, when Kane leapt up, barking sharply, a tone James hadn't heard since the desert. The dog rushed forward, blocking his path, and seconds later, a massive oak limb crashed down, 15 feet of wood and bark exploding where James would have stood. Kneeling, James wrapped his arms around Kane's thick neck, whispering, "You're still watching over me," his voice trembling with gratitude. The months that followed were a gift. Walks beneath golden leaves, slow mornings with jazz and warm coffee, Kane's steady presence grounding James in a way nothing else had. Even as Kane's strength waned, diagnosed with an adrenal tumor, he remained James's protector, waking him from a house fire one winter night, dragging him to safety through a window into the snow. Their reunion wasn't just a return, it was a healing, a second chance to mend what war had broken. Together, they weren't soldier and service dog anymore. They were survivors, rebuilding a life with every shared breath. As winter settled over the small Texas town, snow falling silently outside James Walker's home, Kane's strength began to fade. The German shepherd, now frail from an advanced adrenal tumor diagnosed months earlier, had already defied the odds by reuniting with James after 7 years apart. Yet even as his steps slowed and his breath grew labored, Kane's instincts remained razor sharp. One frigid night, James fell asleep early on the couch, an old, dusty space heater humming in the corner, a relic he'd meant to replace. As the temperature dropped, the wiring overheated, sparks igniting a silent, deadly fire. Smoke curled through the hallway, thick and black, unnoticed by James as he coughed faintly in his sleep. Down the hall, Kane stirred, sniffing the air once, then again. Despite his trembling legs and aging body, he rose, ears pricked, heart locked on the soldier's instinct that had defined him. He padded swiftly to the bedroom, barking sharply, a sound that cut through the haze. When that didn't rouse James, Kane clawed at the door, then shouldered it open, leaping onto the bed to paw at him. Still groggy, James didn't stir until Kane bit the blanket's edge and yanked, jolting him awake. Lungs burning, James saw the smoke and grabbed Kane, throwing open a window to stumble into the freezing night. They landed hard in the snow, coughing and shaking as flames licked the drapes behind them, sirens wailing in the distance. Burying his face in Kane's neck, James whispered, "You saved me again," his voice breaking, not just from war this time, but from the life he'd been running from. A month later, Kane's strength ebbed further, his days spent resting by the back door, soaking in sunlight. One quiet afternoon, as snow flurried outside, he lay on a blanket, head on James's leg, and took his final, peaceful breath. James didn't cry immediately. He sat still, hand on Kane's chest, drawing strength from the calm in his old friend's face. In the days that followed, James gathered friends, neighbors, and fellow veterans to share stories by candlelight, framing a photo of Kane in his service vest above the fireplace with the words, "Kane, always my brother." The story spread. A local news piece turned national, earning Kane the posthumous title, Service Dog of Valor. Letters poured in from across the country, inspired by his bravery. But James carried Kane's legacy further, volunteering at VA centers to help veterans heal, his voice steady as he spoke of loyalty and love. Holding Kane's weathered collar one golden evening, James smiled, knowing Kane's mission lived on. In every veteran he reached, in every quiet step forward, a testament to a bond that transcended time and loss. The story of James Walker and Kane is more than a tale of a veteran and his military dog reuniting after 7 years. It's a powerful testament to loyalty and resilience that echoes far beyond their small Texas town. From the scorching sands of Afghanistan, where Kane shielded James from an IED blast, to the quiet shelter kennel where their amber eyes met again, their bond was unbreakable, forged in the crucible of war and tempered by time. Kane's loyalty wasn't just in his actions, saving James from explosions, a falling tree limb, or a house fire, but in his unwavering presence, a constant through years of separation and James's battle with post-traumatic stress. Even as his body weakened, ravaged by an adrenal tumor, Kane rose one snowy night to drag James from a burning house, proving that love doesn't falter, even at life's edge. For James, that loyalty became a lifeline, pulling him from the shadows of isolation into a world he'd long abandoned. Their reunion wasn't a return to the past, but a forging of something new. Two survivors navigating wounds of war with quiet strength. Resilience defined them both. Kane, who endured years of unknown hardship to find his way back, and James, who found purpose in Kane's presence, eventually sharing their story to help other veterans heal. That resilience rippled outward. Kane's posthumous Service Dog of Valor title and the letters from strangers across the country bore witness to a legacy that transcended their quiet walks and slow mornings. Sitting on his porch one evening, James held Kane's worn collar, its cedar scent a faint reminder of his brother, and smiled. Not with sorrow, but with peace. Their story whispers a universal truth. The ones we lose never truly leave us. Kane stayed in James's every step forward, in the veterans he inspired, in the calm breaths that no longer trembled. It's a reminder that love doesn't forget. It returns when we need it most, offering second chances and the strength to endure. In a world often marked by loss, James and Kane's journey stands as a beacon of hope, proving that loyalty and resilience can heal even the deepest scars. The story of James Walker and Kane offers profound lessons in loyalty, resilience, and the healing power of connection. It teaches us that true bonds, whether with a person or a companion, endure beyond time and hardship, returning when we least expect it to guide us through darkness. Cain's unwavering loyalty, saving James from war, a falling branch, and a fire, reminds us to cherish those who stand by us, even silently, and to recognize their impact long after they're gone. James's journey from isolation to purpose shows that resilience isn't about erasing pain, but building anew with what remains. For those navigating life's battles, be it trauma, loss, or quiet struggles, this tale urges us to seek and nurture connections that anchor us. It's a call to hold space for healing, to honor the past without letting it define us, and to pay forward the strength we gain, as James did with veterans. In our own lives, we can apply this by reaching out to those who've drifted away, offering support to others, or simply pausing to appreciate the quiet heroes, human or otherwise, who help us find our way home.